Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lastia Cahoot and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Hello, and welcome to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? My name is Lastia. I am your host. And once again with me, as usual, is my co-host on this show and in life, Mr. Glenn Sheridan.
That would be me. Hello, everyone.
And today we have a guest on who I am so excited to have on. This conversation feels like it's been a long time coming. I'm not even sure what is going to come up, but I know that whatever comes up is what wants to be shared and what wants to percolate and what wants us to marinate on it and chew on it and spit it out. And I'm so excited for everything that is about to come up. So a little bit about our guest today. She is a writer, editor, entrepreneur, and a student of psychology and philosophy. That's actually how we met. She recently launched her own website to showcase her writing and share her perspectives and knowledge with the world, including long-form guides on intelligence, personality, and critical thinking, which are available for free to anyone who desires to be a better thinker and step into their personal freedom. I am also so grateful because she was one of the main editors for my book that I just finished. She is also a really dear friend of ours, is an amazing being who is just so smart, so wise, so focused on how we use our minds in terms of how we create our reality. And just recently, I can't remember when exactly it was, a week ago, she put out an amazing video on YouTube calling out our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, for his leadership. And it's a really great watch, really great listen. It's about 9 minutes long. So if you haven't had a chance to go and check it out, I encourage you to do so after this, because it is amazing, it is powerful, it is poignant, and I think it is just it's timely and it's relevant and it's stuff that needs to be addressed. So without further ado, because there is so much more to learn and find out about our super special guest today, Ms. Emily Rodgers, tell us, who do you think you are?
Hi, everyone. I think that I know that I am free. That's the bottom line, is I am free. And so I wrote something down that I just wanted to share. So I am free, and freedom means choice, and choice means responsibility. And responsibility implies that there is a good objective truth going on. There is a good and there is an evil, and that we need to be responsible to. And having this choice, having this responsibility implies that there is meaning. There is meaning to life. So I work that all the way back to just the very simple truth that I am free. And then from there are implications. But fundamentally, I am free.
Well, starting off with a bang. Okay, so this I think is a huge concept, a huge ideal, something that is very worthwhile talking about right now. And we didn't even come up with code words or anything. So I'm just trusting that whatever wants to come up today is coming up, and that it will be shared with as many or as few people, as it's meant to be shared with. So freedom. We, all three of us, are in British Columbia in Canada right now. And in just a matter of days, the vaccine passports are rolling out in our province. And there are a whole bunch of different institutions, organizations, centers, places where people would normally assemble, where they aren't necessarily going to be able to do so anymore if they haven't been vaccinated, or if they choose not to show proof of vaccination via this vaccine passport. So there is a lot of talk about freedom right now, a lot of talk about freedom of choice, freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, freedom of education, freedom of bodily autonomy, just freedom, 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 freedom. And and for me, as someone who has been immersed for the past 5 years in spiritual and consciousness studies, um, this, I actually talked about it in the Sunday talk that I did today. This is the first time in my lifetime that I can remember feeling very uncomfortable with what is going on in my world. Now, I'm going to back up a little and say that I truly believe that I create my reality, as does everyone and everything. That being said, I also believe that there are collective agreements that are made from moment to moment to moment, where even though each individual might be experiencing something slightly different and unique to them, that we do experience something sort of together, cohesively, if you will. And so right now, the idea that after 5 years of studying a philosophy where we espouse the fact that we do not teach people what to think, but how to think, how to use their minds, and how to sort of harness the power that each and every one of us is at our core to live a more engaging, more thoughtful, more mindful, more joyful, more fulfilling life. I feel like right now there's a lot of me being told what to think. Anybody want to jump on that?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think that, creating our own reality is all fine and dandy until someone else's reality that they want to create infringes now on my reality. So, like you said, Lasia, there has to be these collective agreements and as to how to go about operating in reality. And these collective agreements, this is the trajectory, this is the history of Western civilization, is those specific agreements. We battled chaos, we battled nihilism, we fought back against just the meaninglessness of life unless you use your mind and choose what to believe in. That's what Western civilization represents. It represents the coming to the realization that without these collective agreements as to how to live together in morality, in justice, in what's good and true and beautiful, if we don't come to these agreements, if we don't work our way together through this and arrive at this ultimate conclusion of how to live together, we fall into that, we fall back into that state of chaos and nihilism and meaninglessness. So yes, we create our own realities. Everyone's capable of creating their own reality, but what we're experiencing right now is the fallout of when realities clash. And it's just so obvious that that's what's going on right now. And it really is quite tragic, because it feels like upside down world.
Yeah.
It feels like what's right, what's wrong. I'm saying I know I'm right because I create my own reality. I'm right, but then I have somebody else over here telling me in my reality I'm right and you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
How do you win?
Yeah. And so, there's this sort of, there are two, like for me, I'm thinking there are at least two ways of looking at this. I mean, go quantum and there are infinite ways of looking at this. But what comes to mind right away is two individuals who believe different things and, can't get on common ground, can't, just are clashing, and there's that kind of thing. But the even scarier thing, I don't know if I want to use the word scary. I'm going to use the word scary, but I may choose to, back that up or change that to something else down the road, is that it's not just individuals with individuals. It is media. it is all levels of government. And I'm not saying that every single person in the media, every single person in all levels of government is of like mind, because I think we've been shown, via YouTube, via all sorts of different social media platforms, that there are people who don't think the same way, that don't even toe the party line, so to speak. Um, and so, what I find discombobulating, distressing, unmooring is that right now, amidst all of this bombardment of just stories and information, I'm finding it really challenging to know what is factual and what is not. I'm not even going to go with true. I'm just talking about facts, cold, hard facts. When there are stories in the media that are saying there are a certain number of sick people in hospitals, in certain wards, this is the percentage, and they're there because they have not gotten the shot. They are there because they are exposed, because they are at greater risk, and they are the ones that are mainly in there. And then go and find something else on social media because it hasn't made it to mainstream media, where there are people who work in those hospitals saying, that's just not true. I work on that ward. I work in that same building, and that just is not true. You are being lied to. And and for someone, I'm talking about me here, who would like to think that everybody goes through life on some level living in a way that is not only for their best and highest good, but for sort of like the good of all involved, even if it's not as mindful or like aware on a big sort of level or scope or something like that, because everyone is where they're at on their journey and their consciousness and level of awareness, that still the people are not intentionally trying to cause harm. But it's getting more and more challenging for me to really still believe that, because it just seems like there, who is stating fact, who is spinning, who is dishing out misinformation. And if you're dishing out misinformation, why? To what end? Like, I guess, for me, it's just like, I don't get it. And to keep coming back to sort of, like what I'm studying, what I'm rooted in, the spiritual and consciousness studies, to understand that sort of, these are circumstances, this is what is going on. um that, kind of going back to the very beginning, where you talked about freedom and choice and responsibility being this, incredibly interconnected trifecta, that we are all responsible to show up as our best selves, to all think for ourselves, to really really endeavor not get to pulled into that incredible strong pull of race consciousness that can be so incredibly addictive, can be so, like enticing, intoxicating, or whatever, and sometimes just like really really hard, because you don't realize you're in it until you're in it, kind of thing. And to know that we're always choosing. It's not even that we're at opportunity, to choose. We're choosing all the time how we want to show up, what we want to think, how we want to behave, what kind of action steps we want to take or not take. So it's I just I it's like, I don't know who to believe right now. And it's shocking that this is happening in our country, and all over the world in some ways. But I'll just speak for like where I live right now and what my experience is, because that's the one that I'm most familiar with. Any Mensch, I don't know if you want to jump in here at some point, but
Well, it's difficult to, it's a challenge to not get into particular examples of what, like, that demonstrate what you just said and what Emily has said about, we're in topsy-turvy world kind of thing. Um, because that's where we go to bolster our already established what is it?
Premise.
Premise. Like, this is what I already know, and here's my proof, you know?
Hmm.
But, the challenge is to stay above it a bit and just try and talk through it. I mean, the way I'm trying to see what's going on is that to remind myself that whatever's happening in this experience that I'm going through is merely a reflection of my consciousness,
Hmm.
my state of mind, my state of being, where I'm at emotionally, and like even my nervous system when I wake up in the morning or go to sleep. Like, what, like, am I in a relaxed, expansive, loving, I know all is well, you know, I live in a safe universe. I live in as Einstein would say, I live in a friendly universe. Am I there, or am I in this closed down, like tightened up, as you were going into your talk today, about the fight or flight response thing, that we're basically in this cycle of, oh, it's so much easier to wake up in the morning and feel like I'm doing something by checking social media, checking the news, answering this email or text, getting this, thing that is telling me this image or this meme or this link to a story on whatever the CNN or whatever it is, that would bolster what we already feel is true. But like, that's the problem, is like, I just wrote down myself there that what's happening is like a measurement. It's more of a measurement of that state of consciousness, right? It's where we are as a community, as a state or province, as a country. And it's this kind of, each individual pixel makes up this picture of where we are. So, and but there's still, ultimately, all you can really do is from your own pixel perspective. Like, I know this to be true, and I'm not going to waver, because what I'm experiencing is the mirror.
Hmm.
I'm scraping the mirror. I'm trying to affect what's in me by doing something with what I'm looking at, which is in the mirror, which is a reflection of me.
Hmm.
And the trickier part is, it's almost like we're into sort of holograms or something, because there's like little bits. That's not a good analogy. It's I'm trying to change the other person's pixel, because I know, like, you need the contrast. Like, to have a picture on a screen, each pixel is like, they're not all the same, right? And that's the thing that's kind of getting lost, is we have to honor the fact that each person is a different opinion,
Hmm.
perspective, state of where they are, fear or openness or uncertainty or whatever it is. And like, it's interesting that Emily uses this phrase about, where we are as Western civilization, that it's a real good and evil breakdown that is going on. And maybe we can talk a bit more about that, because like, I'm uncomfortable with the word evil. I don't like, I know I have lots of my friends online, and they're totally okay with it, and there's different ways of personifying that evil. Like, even Paul Levy, when we talk to him, he talks about the archetypal evil. I'm more comfortable with that idea. Like, this notion of, we all know what evil is as an archetype, but we really don't want to encounter it as, say, a human being, or as a an action taken by a group of people, a person in power, you know, exercising a right, and it comes across as like, why would you do that? Like, that's a it's a stark reminder that those things are out there. I mean, whatever's happened in Afghanistan, as an example, it's just like, it is topsy turvy world, because okay, that's happened, and the world has to make some changes. But okay,
Okay, just before we go
Mhm.
on, because I did want to hop onto the word evil as well, because it's not that I'm uncomfortable with using it, but it has a different meaning for me. So I just thought I'm just going to look it up to see what it says online, and the Oxford Online Dictionary says profoundly immoral and wicked, as a noun, profound immorality and wickedness, especially when regarded as a supernatural force. And so for me, I'm much more used to evil in terms of sort of science of mind, where it's more like missing the mark, or thinking
Exactly.
that isn't right thinking kind of thing. And
Exactly.
so it's not that it's an actual entity or it's an actual
Mm-mm.
thing so much. And like I said earlier, like I really believe in innate, inherent good in all. And so just by virtue of that, I don't think anyone or anything, is evil. Like abhorrent, heinous, atrocious, all that kind of stuff. Like acts can be that way, but I don't think any one individual or group of people are inherently, bad in that profound sounding way. So I just wanted to hop on that. But I also really want to hear what Emily has to say, because you also use that word in your video, when
Mm-hmm.
you talk to our prime minister and basically say you can no longer stay silent. Things have just come to a certain level for you, and it's time for you to speak up. And so I would love for you to talk about some of what you talked about in that video too, which is along the lines of what we're talking about. But what was the inspiration, and what was sort of the final straw that it was like, okay, it's time, I got to speak up.
Um, so the inspiration for it was one of those moments of it was a moment of inspiration. I was just sitting down in the morning, having my coffee, like really thinking about how far we have come in society, and just the sheer dread I think that a lot of people are feeling about the prospect of losing all of that. And I would like to say that I wrote that, but I didn't write it. It's not even like me writing it when I write something like that. It just flowed through me. I was just the faucet and the water just came out.
Mhm.
Um, as I like tweaked it a bit, you know, those are the tweaks that I made to it. But the crux of it, the core message of it, the the time to take a stand, that feeling that it's backed by that, and my entire video is backed by this feeling of it is time to take a stand. Like that came through me, because this is not something that I would normally do. Like I am an extreme introvert. Um, I get very uncomfortable, being in the spotlight of any kind, of putting any kind of focus on myself. It's a some shadow work there. Um, so like this is not something that, you know, I would choose to do. My ego would choose to do.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it was pure inspiration from our ultimate source. Now the word evil. So so Sigmund Freud was one of the first psychologists to identify or define or describe the propensity for evil inside each and every human being. That Okay, so I believe, coming from a Christian background and living in a world that is influenced by these morals and these values, that there is inherent worth, dignity, and value in every human being. Full stop.
Mhm.
Um, but because we're free, we have choice. And evil is a choice. And evil is a choice that every single person is capable of making. And this is something that we see over and over and over again throughout history, particularly the 20th century is a shocking and despicable example of choosing evil over and over and over again. Just the ideology of evil. Um, it's a virus. It can get passed on just as much as a frequency of joy and love and motivation and support and encouragement. The opposite of those can get passed on as well, because humans are we're motivated by complex things, and sometimes we are motivated by evil. And like I said, the 20th century is a prime example of that. So Sigmund Freud was the first person to really bring this into the light, to say that we can't just cast evil out and say I'm uncomfortable with it and I don't want to look at it and I'd rather pretend it doesn't exist, because it does exist, because it's a choice and humans are ultimately at choice. So hiding it away, shoving it under the rug, saying I don't want to look at it because I'm scared of it, that will only cause it to rise up and give it power. And then we're faced with now a real choice. Do we give into it? Because evil can be quite convincing. That's what the 20th century represents: the justification of atrocities. These dictators, these tyrants, we all know who they are. They were able to convincingly justify
Mm-hmm.
their evil. And all these people who have inherent dignity, worth, and value, and free will, and who are, you know, otherwise loving, wonderful human beings, chose to go along with those things. So this is Jordan Peterson talks about this. This is a very big concern, that if we do not look at evil and look at the possibility of its existence in all of us, the propensity for all of us to act out evil, we will succumb to it eventually, one way or another, if we choose to ignore these shadow elements. So, yeah, no, evil isn't necessarily an entity or a supernatural thing. It's in each and every one of us, should we misdirect our choices.
Okay.
Yeah, the it reminds me of the thing, one of the three things that uh, is in the coddling of the American mind, where I think Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff, they talk about the inverted, the new sort of truths that have been accepted, or just that are not helpful at all. And one of them is that um, evil, it goes through the heart of every man and woman. Um, Whereas the new way of looking at it is there are good people and there are evil people, and it's like, well, that's not going to work. Which leads me to the there's a quote by Aldous Huxley, where he's talking about propaganda. He says the propagandist's purpose is to make one set of people forget that certain other sets of people are human. So it's the same thing. It's dehumanizing. And as you mentioned, Jordan Peterson there, I mean, his area of focus when he was studying, you know, just what this evil thing is all about, his take on it was that, as awful as it was in Nazi Germany and the buildup of that, um, from the, First World War. I think our daughter's about to come in and tell me.
Finish your thought. I'm not going to let her in until you
Yeah.
finish your thought.
You know, the number of people that died would have been greater, um, under the various communist regimes that that started, say, in the 20s. I mean, the Russian Revolution was 17, and the Berlin Wall didn't fall till mid 80s. So there's 60 years of that kind of, as you're saying, evil insistence that we have to do it this way because it's for the greater good, right?
Mm.
And it's like, but people knew that, you know, it's not it's not good. It's just agreeing because everyone is saying something. So I think our daughter is looking lovely coming in. I'm talking about Mylana doesn't know what we're talking about, I think. We're
She
just talking about
probably
we
talked about it in school. So
yeah. Yeah, you did a bit of and you're doing genocide studies in next year, right, Mylana?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll be able to fill me in on all the stuff I've missed in the last little while. Yeah.
okay, she
Yeah.
just walked into the conversation.
If anyone's listening, my daughter's like, "What is going on here?" Do you want to say something, Milana? Just about anything?
Um, Not at the moment, but probably
Okay.
later on when I have more context about what is happening.
Okay. Good
Okay, so
call.
for everyone who, well, I mean, you can see if you're watching that, a face just popped on, but if you're just listening, then our 17-year-old daughter, who is in grade 12, Milana, she just joined us, and we've wanted to have her on the show for a while. And she's like, no, I don't think so. And then finally, and I think part of the reason that she came on was because Emily is on, that it just thought it would be really nice to have the perspective and viewpoint of a delightful, smart, free thinking, very powerful 17-year-old, to see what she had to say about some of the stuff that we're talking about and that is bubbling up today. So, where do we go from here? Because now the conversation just kind of like, it took a slightly different turn. But Honey Bunch, did you want to keep going with what you were talking
Yeah,
about?
I just,
You
I
want to
think,
actually, do you want to say the quote again by Aldous
yeah,
Huxley?
Aldous Huxley, we're talking about the idea of propaganda because that is that our current media right now in most even Western countries um, that are at the stage that we're at in Canada, um, it's state media, right? It's the equivalent of state media where everyone is singing from the same hymn book and giving the same message, and there's very little room for dissent. There's very little room for debate or listening. There's a lot of shutting down of dissenting thought or even questions. So the Aldous Huxley, who wrote the other great dystopian novel after Orwell uh, wrote before he wrote 1984, but Aldous Huxley wrote Brave New World, where we won't get into that, but he knows his stuff, right? So Aldous Huxley said the propagandist's purpose is to make one set of people forget that certain other sets of people are human, because the dehumanizing that people seem to be falling into the pattern of is essentially what we're talking about is like um, the bizarre behavior that has been exhibited by our prime minister in the last little while um, regarding this issue of vaccine passports that he said back in May were kind of going to be impractical to, because how could you do that? How could you ensure that everyone's rights are being um, sort of respected? And then fast forward a few months, and it's like, no, you're not going to be able to get on an airplane. You're not going to be able to do various other things because we all need to get vaccinated. We all need to get this pass. We all need to follow along this set of rules, which are authoritarian. Um, so I think the 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 model that has been in place where we can see that that was a disaster is the Soviet Union countries and to some extent in China and in Cambodia and in Laos, I think, you have people just being killed, never mind being ostracized because they don't fall in line. And that's not what, as Emily said, Western values are all about. So, you know, we have a right to express values, express opinions, um, decide what happens to our bodies um, without the state telling us, no, you've got to do this. You have to do that, you know? So,
Well, thank you for that. And it just kind of makes me think of, well, I mean, a ton of stuff, but just well, like before we came on about an hour ago, I sent each one of you, I forwarded a series of videos off Instagram that my trainer sent me. And I didn't watch all of them, just like little snippets of them. And it was just interesting to see how nurses and doctors who are standing in front of the hospitals that they work in are being interviewed by this individual who I don't even know whose page it was, saying that they work in the wards that are being talked about, where there are all of these unvaccinated people that are sick with the virus, when really either there's no one in there, or most of the people who are in there, like someone even said, 90% are people that have gotten the shots. And these are the injuries as the, as a result of those shots that they're dealing with. And then there was in Kentucky, there were nurses who came to work and were told, sorry, you can't come in. And they had, like a hidden camera, but that they were fired on the spot because they refused to get the shot. And so it just, it's upsetting, it's frightening, it's slightly daunting. But it's amazing that there is just this, sort of like, I don't even know. I mean, Glenn, you were talking about a mirror before, and I mean, I've talked before about how our outer world is a reflection of our inner world, but it's just, this is, and Emily, you said, the upside down world. It's just like, what are we living in, and how, what do we, latch onto as far as kind of moving forward through our day. And so, Mylana, I don't know if you want to talk now or if you want to listen a little bit more, but you also are in British Columbia, just like we are. And I mean, actually, Emily, until recently, you guys were on the island, but you're now on the mainland, so you are having a slightly different experience even from, what you may have had here. But Mylana, do you want to talk about what your feelings are about what's going on, and what you think, and kind of what you're having to navigate as a 17-year-old going into grade 12, and then after that going on to university or something else?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, for me, because I'm like a minor still, and many of my friends still live with their parents. When COVID first started, some of my friends, like, they weren't allowed out of their house for like the first like 4 or 5 months, and they couldn't like really go anywhere or like hang out with anybody. And it kind of sucked because I mean, I know a lot of people were in that position, but I think that on Vancouver Island, the cases were significantly lower, and there was a less likelihood of transmission than many other parts of the world. And then the fact that so many of my parents or friends' parents still are very uh, kind of like really, stressed out and nervous and like scared, and won't really let their kids do a lot of stuff because of COVID. It sucks because, I think as like as a 16-year-old, as a 17-year-old, you should be allowed to make your own decisions because you are, I'll be graduating soon. And if, I can't hang out with some of my friends like right now or, in the past, just because of how their parents feel, it could definitely, carry over to early adulthood, if my friends are still living with their parents when they're 18 and 19 and 20. And so for me, it just makes me kind of question the world that I will be leaving high school and going into, whether that's like university or just a gap year, and actually in real life with many other adults, on a day-to-day basis. If, if my friends will get the freedoms, to kind of like even just choose if they want to, hang out with people and who they want to hang out with, or if, they'll still have a curfew because they still live with their parents. Yeah.
So, Mylana, are you okay to talk about how you feel about the idea of passports being mandated,
Sure.
regardless of whether or not someone has, it doesn't matter what their choice is as far as the vaccination goes, but the
Mhm.
idea of the passport specifically.
Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's definitely a violation of someone's medical privacy. And this could, in a way be a gateway to other, if it's okay to ask for this specific part of someone's medical history, then slowly over time it could be like, well, it's okay to ask for this part and this part, and then soon I don't know, you might have to submit a lot of information to just like go to a concert, in your local city that isn't just this COVID vaccine passport. And I think that it was definitely like a rush decision that kind of happened very, very quickly, and hasn't been given the amount of thought needed for it to run smoothly. Because the premier, John Horgan himself, has just said if people give you a hard time, to, like restaurant workers and, bartenders, to just call the police. Well, if, there's 35 situations, and, it's the same, like all within a 10-kilometer radius, chances are there are not going to be enough police officers to go to all of those, bars and restaurants. And it's also, I think the police have more important things to do. And I mean, they are like, if you're a police officer, you are an adult. However, many hosts and hostesses and servers at, restaurants, can be, my age or slightly younger. And I feel that it should not be on them to have to deal with the rollout of passports. And, I work in a cafe, and even just during like mandatory masks, having to ask someone to put on a mask, um had some like ugly confrontations, and that's just asking someone to like put a mask on, and I can like see if they have one on or not, and then have to ask them to like put one on or put it on correctly. And so that's kind of taking the whole conversation up to like a lot, like like 10 times higher, because now you have to ask someone for like a passport, and there will be people who do not want to hand it over, and could start yelling, verbal abuse, I don't know. And I think that for the government of British Columbia, the government of Ontario, Manitoba, Quebec, for them, and other places in the world to kind of put this on like the younger generation and minors is completely unfair and just wrong.
Wow.
Oh, Mylana, thank you so much for sharing that.
That's such an important perspective. I think we, as adults, get adult centric
Yep.
and forget that literal children have jobs. You know, in Canada, you can hold a job, I think, at 14 or 15. So, yeah, I mean, Mylana, you are absolutely so 100% correct when you say that you question if they've really thought it through. Have they thought through the full range of implications? Have they thought it through to its logical conclusion? And one must only conclude that no, they haven't, because you brought up this excellent point about how putting this on a child, putting this on a minor, this responsibility that could result in altercations, potentially physical harm, is unconscionable to do to a child. It's just completely wrong. And so for you to bring that up, it's hearing you say it, it seems so obvious. So like you said, like they clearly haven't thought it through because they haven't been asking the right people. They haven't been asking the people who are ultimately going to be affected by it, which is people like yourself. And it shouldn't be up to you. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that.
Now, I have another question. Now, you mentioned, I mean, you're 17 and you talked about minors having a lot of these sort of, frontline jobs where the responsibility will fall on them to enforce, the showing of these passports, or enforce not basically barring people from entering certain premises where these passports are going to be required. You are someone who is very interested in politics, but you're not of voting age yet. So how does what is going on right now with the various levels of government, including, in this snap election that was called, just 2 years into the Liberals' term, how do you feel as a voter to be? Because I know you're excited to vote in your first election, but how do you feel? What is your vote going to mean? What is that privilege? What does that right mean to you?
Well, first of all, in regards to this election, I think it's hilarious that Justin Trudeau called it, thinking that he was going to get a majority government. And he has hinted in some interviews with the other federal leaders of the various parties that if he does not get a majority government again, and he still gets into power, but it's a minority government and he has to work with the NDP and the Green Party, he will call another election in 18 months, which is ridiculous. But for me, voting, it's my right, and kind of like one way that I can use my voice in saying who I want to lead the country where I live, and specifically like the MP for my riding, and I think that it's a really important decision that should not be taken lightly, and I know that some parties in the past have thought about lowering or raising the voting age, because so I know the Green Party, that was one of their main points a few years ago, that they wanted to lower it to 16 years old. Now, I know a lot of 16-year-olds, some are mature, some are not. And I think that the thing, with young people is some, I think, don't understand just like how important voting can be, and could kind of just, ask their friends, who are you voting for? It happens in the student elections that happen in various high schools. Uh, when the federal and like provincial elections happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if, there are young people out there who kind of just vote for whatever, or, vote for which name sounds the coolest or their favorite color and go with that. But for me, voting is, I'm really excited that I'm almost at voting age. And I certainly have an idea of who I would personally vote for in this election. But yeah, I think that voting is really important, and that it is a right, it is an honor. And I think that it needs to be taught more in schools, the impact that it has and just how important it is, because I do know a lot of young adults who like haven't even registered to vote. Some of them are 18, some of them are 25, and they just, don't understand why they need to do it. So I think that definitely schools need to kind of step up in high school and explain why that's important as well.
So there's not,
Mylana,
oh, go ahead, Emily, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, do schools still do mock elections? That was a big thing when I was going
Yeah,
to school.
so we do mock elections basically whenever like a real election is happening. Um, but I do know that in my social studies class, I was lucky to have a teacher that was very passionate about our government systems in Canada. And so she took the time to go through that in my grade 11 social studies class. However, it used to be in the grade 12 class, and then it got demoted to grade 11 and then grade 10. And I think it's now actually in the grade 9 social studies curriculum. That's really the only time that they touch on it in detail, which is kind of weird because grade 9s are the farthest away from voting out of all the grades in high school. And so I think that, you know, um, the school curriculums across the country need to make more of an effort in having it, touched on in all grades, but especially grade 11 and 12 when students are actually approaching the age to vote.
Yeah.
Amazing. So clearly there's nothing that's going on that is dissuading you from voting when you finally have the chance. Like it sounds like you really feel this is a super important right, that everyone has a responsibility to vote, to be heard in that way. Um, and that it's very, very valuable and important. And I actually really appreciate and love that you said that you would like to see the impact of it taught in, or it taught in schools or talked about in schools more, so that kids could really, really understand the kind of impact that they can actually have by voting. Cool. Yay. All right. Honey Bunch, you're muted. Anything you want to add?
No, I'm proud of Mylana. We have some excellent talks. Sometimes I'm not even ready. I'm just ready for a nap, and then the talk starts when I get home, and I learn things, and I'm privileged to experience the opening of her mind and her seeing her principles in play. She's working through some stuff, but she also has, Mylana, I should be talking to you. You also have an excellent moral compass, and you are very respectful of people in general. So I know that most people are, you can find good things about people that you don't know, but I think you do have that innate trust in people. Um, Give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm very proud of your explorations into, in this case it's politics, but your creativity and your belief in yourself in terms of like sustaining yourself monetarily even, and all the things you've done in the last year and a half have been amazing. So those examples, those things that normally children becoming teens should be um, getting excited about, like traveling with friends or going to another province or city to study or whatever. Um, it's kind of annoying that these things are being, the brakes are being put on this for so many younger people for just strange reasons. We'll leave it at that. So I'm really glad that you're looking at your options in terms of, say, going to Ontario or not, when you're ready to go to college or university. And um, if you do get into the whole teaching stream, I think you'll be an excellent role model, and just you'll be able to shine your light and be encourage people, younger children, to be who they are, and yeah, the world will be better because of it. So
Here, here.
Absolutely.
And since we have Mylana on the show, and one of the reasons that I did want to have her on the show is because not only is she a big thinker, but she is also a very talented singer. And she recently released her very first single called
It's called Never Needed You. And it was probably about a year in the making, from start to finish, but it was a really cool experience. And I, thought about possibly pursuing music after high school. But I felt, I don't actually need to wait until I finish high school to do something like this. And so I kind of just wanted to, get a head start. Yeah.
So here's a question for you, and there might be a little bit of rambling on the way there, but there have been many times where you have been at home, or maybe a friend has been over or something like that, and you're like, Mom, stop talking about your create your reality and new thought crap and whatever. I don't want to hear it anymore. But I go into your room and I see these amazing affirmations and quotes and sayings on your blackboard, on your wall. You have a beautiful affirmation on your phone. And I think about all the things that you have immersed yourself in, all the things that you have accomplished, all the things that you have created in your lifetime, especially in the last couple of years. And I would love to know, because you don't want to answer the question, who do you think you are? What would you have to offer to other kids who are maybe a little bit younger, or maybe, around your age or something, who are maybe nervous about how they should be kind of showing up in life, or if they have a dream but they're not really sure how to do it, how would they go about doing that? Because I mean, you recorded your own single, and this wasn't just like into your phone or something like that. Like, you worked with your vocal coach, with an engineer, a producer, and like, it's a really, really well done thing. You had a photo shoot, so that you could have a lovely photo, which you knew right away which one was the one. You're like, Mom, I want to use that one for my first single. And you did. You saved up for a few years to buy your first car, which you paid for all by yourself. And you did your due diligence and looked into all sorts of cars and researched the Lemonade Guide and Auto Trader and a whole bunch of stuff to like really know what you were looking at. And I can't even, and you've been back to Toronto 3 times since we moved here, paid for, planned, all by yourself. The first time was when you were 14. And so wasn't it?
12.
12. Okay. And
Come on,
for how
Mom.
long we've been here. And you wrote all the parents and called them and contacted them to ask them when you could stay with them, and you booked your own travel arrangements and all that kind of stuff. So I see you as a powerhouse. Like I am just blown away and inspired by you on a daily, sometimes moment to moment basis. So what do you have to offer other kids who maybe are looking for some inspiration or some motivation or some, like, just, hey, you got this kind of thing? What do you have to say to them?
I think probably my biggest piece of advice would be to just go for it. Just, start now. There's no point in waiting if you know what you want to do. And you don't always have to have a plan because, sometimes stuff might end up different as what you thought it would have been when you started. But I think that, you really are never too young to just, start whatever it is that you want to do. And I think that a lot of my friends, at least, a, a few of their parents are maybe more, kind of traditional thinking in terms of like, just like go to school, focus on being a student, get good grades, and then go to like college or university. Um, and I mean, I'm, grateful at least that I have parents who kind of just, let me do what I want. And, um, because for me, I don't know, I really wanted to, get like into music and release a song, and I did that. And I wanted to pay for my own car all by my own, and I did that. And I think, you know, parents often underestimate their kids, and they kind of, you know, don't let them be independent until they graduate and are considered an adult. But I think that the most important thing that I can, tell like even my friends or, those younger than me is to just like start now, whatever it is that you want to do.
And Mylana, is it always easy just because you want to do it?
No. Um, no, it can be really challenging. And I also, would recommend that a lot of the time, people will doubt you. So just tell as few people as you can. Not because, you just like want to, not tell anyone and like in a sense hide it from the world, but just because you're more likely to actually, go through with it and like do whatever it is that you want to do, if people aren't filling your head with doubt. And so if you can avoid that, um, just do that. Because I know for me, when I told a few people that, I like have a song, I want to release it, they were like, you're crazy. And then I told people, I have a song, I'm releasing it. They're like, there's no way you're going to do that. I'm like, well, it's already out on Apple Music. So sorry, but it already happened. And yeah. So I think just, work in silence and let success be your noise. That's a quote that I read somewhere. Not 100% sure who said it originally, but it really resonated with me. And until you're ready for the rest of the world to join in on whatever it is that you want to do, keep it to yourself, or as close like as you can, with your like family or friends, and then open it up to the world, and see what happens.
Beautiful.
Yay. Right on. All right. Well, we're in like a whole other sea of conversation here. So anyone is free to dive in. Okay, is this the first time we have an actual pause where no one knows what to say? Glenn looks like he's about to say something, but you're muted.
I'm with Emily's opening statement of "I am free." Do you like? Do you feel that knowing that it anchors you, and that means you can ride out any storm? You know what I mean? Like, is that something that you can start with that fact, and then everything you do in your actions and in your thoughts and in the ways that you react to situations that are arising, um, do you feel strongly anchored in that statement of "I am free"?
Yes. Yeah, I feel since coming to the realization that I am free, I feel more comfortable in my beliefs than I ever have. At the point that I'm at right now, I've never felt this certain of what I believe in, um, and the truth of freedom. So, do I feel more anchored? Do I feel like I can weather any storm that comes? I think I have to. It's if I believe that I am free, then I also must believe that that is true, that it is true that I can be anchored and weather any storm. Um, I think it's, the people that were in the internment camps, in the concentration camps, the people who believed already that they were free were the people who were less likely to succumb to severe psychological distress. So yes, it's a choice to know the truth that you are free. Um, and I will say that as much as it is so distressing and so it is terrifying what's going on, um, in terms of the the increasingly tyrannical control of our government, um, I'm almost at a point where I'm grateful for it. I'm almost there because if it weren't for this like overt tyranny,
Yeah.
I could not now counter with this absolute firmness of belief, conviction that I am free. And and I know other people are too, because I know that we're all from the same source. So yeah, I'm almost grateful for it because it has almost it's it's made me so much more certain of my beliefs. And I think that's kind of that's the thing. That's what happens. It's like you're either like humans are resilient, we're anti-fragile. That's
Yeah.
what that's how we should respond to pressure. We don't break under pressure. We get stronger because of it, because of the choices that we make in the face of that pressure. Um, so yeah, I've never felt like more empowered,
Yeah.
and I've never felt more strongly about individual empowerment and how vital it is, to this thing we call life. That that you're either stripping away individual empowerment or you're encouraging it
Yeah.
and bolstering it. Those are the options. So thank you, tyranny.
Yeah.
Thank you for waking me up.
Yeah. That that makes me think of, so in the corporate world now, as it followed from the colleges and universities that have followed the um, critical theory model that introduced diversity training as kind of a given, like this is this is the way you must think. Here are your parameters, because there's a group of people that you can lump together that they have similar experiences, and we have to um, be respectful of those experiences and bring up the whole um, white fragility thing, and just acknowledge our privilege and all that stuff. So that's diversity training, sort of in a badly worded nutshell. What we're talking about more is, I think, the the growing knowledge among people who are no longer listening to mainstream sources, that what is important, especially for younger children, is something like adversity training. That's what it used to be, you know. We didn't call it that, but that's more, you know, you learn by failing, and you learn by knowing that, oh, this didn't really work out for me this time. I may need to tweak or do something differently, or think about this differently, and then go forward again. So knowing that it's okay to have adversarial situations, to have adversarial people in your life, to have messages that are sometimes bombarding us with what seems to be just nonsense, or badly thought out principles. Um, it's a good thing that more people are knowing this. That it's like, I'm okay with telling people, no, I don't like that. That's not what I believe. Here's what I believe. Like, you have to kind of get the contrast to find out where your light is, you know, and then your light shines, and then you know, off you go. So yeah, I don't, I hear what you're saying, and I'm really glad to hear you say that that's been a blessing in disguise this last little while, to alert you to what you actually know and what you believe, and feeling more and more grounded in comfort of knowing who you are, because that will, I think, help you, or anyone who's in that position, to just relax, you know, just to be more okay with um, whatever it is that shows up, that is, you think, oh, I wish that it hadn't happened, but it, you know, it's the maybe story. It's like, well, maybe it's a good thing or a bad thing that it happened, but maybe not. You know, down the road, it may open another door that you had no idea even existed right now, you know. So
And no matter what, in the present moment, you get to choose how you move forward. Like always, you get to choose.
yeah, yeah. I look at my bulletin board here, and the two main messages I have on here are: every moment is a starting point for creation, and expectation drives creation. So the world is being born every moment. It's not just that we can look back and say in history that this. It's like, you know, radical changes happen in the moment, when, you know, even a very few number of people, you know, get very, very clear on something, and the message becomes very pure, and it creates something. It creates a better version of reality than the one that previously, not even previously existed. It's just another aspect of reality. It's not, because the whole thing about time is it doesn't exist. So it's like, if you're in the middle of a diamond and you're just looking at all of the faces around, the way that they're facing out, that's reality over there and that's reality over there, and they're all different depending on what your perspective is and which way you're looking and which way the light is shining. So I that's my ongoing challenge, is to remind myself that right now is when it starts. What is it I want? What do I wish to will into existence? What world do I choose to have for myself and like to share with others? And and sometimes it's encountering things that are uncomfortable is actually the choice, so that you can, you it would be like if you're going down a road and there's a blockade. Sometimes it's better to get over that blockade after a confrontation than it is to walk 5 miles around just to get to the same point. It's like sometimes you just better going through the experience so that you know more about yourself,
Mhm.
of who you are and what you're capable of. So
Okay, so I'm kind of looking at the clock, and I'm thinking I want to ask one more question of everyone, um, to just sort of wrap things up before we go into the next round. And so, because we've been talking about being free, and Emily started off with her response to the "Who do you think you are?" question of "I am free," and responsibility and freedom, choice, and responsibility. I would like to ask everyone, how do you how do you showcase your, and I don't even know if it's like freedom, but like freeness, in terms of like that state of being, that, ideology, that idealism, I guess. How do you express that freeness, that choice, and the responsibility, that all those three things together? How do you show up as that in your life? And since Emily, you first said, I am free, then I'm gonna pass it over to you.
Okay, so yeah, so that's such a great question, because now it's the applicability, because so we know we're free. Now how do we apply that?
Yeah.
And man, that's I don't know that I have a good answer for that. Just because this realization is so, it's not new, but it's taken on a new meaning now for me, that like how I'm expressing that now is, what I did do with the video.
Yep.
So previously, how I would have expressed that would have been more in like pursuit of self, pursuit of self identity, pursuit of, here are the things that I want. But now it seems to me that it's more about the pursuit of meaning, and um, using my life as a way to show the world that it isn't just about me and my pursuits, and this me culture that we kind of live in. um that there is an element of sacrifice, there is an element of courage, of bravery. So perhaps, yes, perhaps that's how I would be expressing that in the world now, is through courage, just through the the thing that is so hard to do, that thing that do that thing.
Mm-hmm. Honey Bunch, how about you?
I'm going to cop out a bit and say, because it's not a well thought out answer, but it's acknowledging that the number of things that I'm grateful for are, they're just immeasurable. Um, so like how many things went right in my day today and my week and my year, and my life. Um, and I know that for other people too, like amazing, just momentum of like ease in a way that manifests just good things ongoing. And I get to catalog them at night before I go to sleep and think about them in the morning when I wake up. But like they easily outweigh the downside, right? We focus more on the negative because that's what we're, I guess, sort of physiologically primed to do, is to like be alert and aware of danger, threat narratives, whatever. But it's pretty cool to know that that's part of that freedom. That it's like, look at this place where we live, you know, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have amazing people in my life, and the people that are in my life that challenge me in different ways through work or whatever it might be, um, they're pretty good too, you know, like no one's chasing me with a stick, so I'm in good shape. Um, so like, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's where I am with that general freedom idea.
All right. Thank you. And Milano.
I think just, you know, I have, the freedom to just stay true to who I am. And, acknowledge those around me, their thoughts and feelings about, various topics in life. But to not get swept up, and to kind of like choose a different mindset, most likely a more positive mindset than those around me. Um, yeah, that's my answer. Short and sweet.
Lovely. And whew, I'm not exactly sure how to answer this myself. But I think, especially after having been in that advanced consciousness studies class last year, where we just blew the foundation of whatever we walked in with, within the first 5 minutes, and then just questioned everything, just like took apart and questioned everything for the entire year. And that leaves me, at least for now, in a state of, um, we talked about sort of like, once you know, you can't unknow. And so having been sort of opened up to to the infinite possibilities, um, of life, knowing that every moment the universe and we are being reborn and rebooted afresh, anew. For me, I think that the freedom and the state of being free is to just be as aware and as present as I possibly can every moment of every day. Because when I am, that's a choice to be aware. But then those choices that I make that sort of like, are part of that trajectory or on that choice come from what's possible and not just what has happened up until now. So it's like going into the new and what I'm capable of, rather than just kind of rehashing the things that I've done and the way that I've lived life up until now, but maybe in a different outfit, on a different day, to a different tune or something like that. So I think it's continuing to just immerse myself in the mystery, in the question, staying as wide-eyed and curious as possible, and kind of like everyone has said here at some point, even in the face of adversity, know that, as I would say, I'm infinitely more powerful, creative, and resilient than anything. And to just remain anchored in that, and I'm always, always, always free to do so. So, Emily, thank you so much for that answer. That sparked such a great conversation. So, right now we're going to hop into our next segment of the show, which is going to lighten things up a bit. This is one of the heavier conversations we've had. So, Honey Bunch, are you ready?
Yeah, and I apologize in advance that I haven't created a customized. Anyway,
You can think of something spontaneously.
you may have heard of some of these before, is what I'm
You
saying.
know Emily well enough. Okay, hold. Oh, I don't need this. And then you can do it for Mylana.
Really?
Really?
No, I think we need to have Mylana back and like really, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, are you ready to do Emily's super rapid fire question round?
Yep.
Okay, so Emily, you have 1 minute to answer as many questions as you possibly can off the top of your head, no deep thought or anything. Of course, you're free to answer in any which way you choose. So on your mark, get set, and go.
Okay, tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Reading or writing?
Writing.
Okay, swearing or hitting a pillow?
The pillow.
21st century or the 20th century?
21st.
Quantum consciousness or God?
God.
Spring or autumn?
Autumn.
Seinfeld or Friends?
Friends.
Okay, and waterfalls or water slides?
Waterfalls.
Okay, walking on the beach or in a forest?
Beach.
Okay, the mainland or the island?
Island.
Whoa. Music or books?
Books.
Okay, appetizer or dessert?
Dessert.
Ding, 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 ding. All right, Glenn, why don't you tell Emily what she's won? And of
Okay,
course,
you
that's
have
in
one
air
in
quotation
quotes.
marks because
Yes.
there's no real prize.
Two quotations from James Gary's book on world's great aphorists. Okay, Gary's Guide to the World's Great Aphorists by James Gary.
But that book never knew that it would be a sponsor to this show, eh?
Mhm. Okay, the first one is by Japanese fellow who died in 1943. He says, "It is a waste of time to try to destroy old things. If you are truly able to become new, the old has already been destroyed." And Antonio Machado, Spanish fellow, died in 1939. It's very short and to the point. "Walker, there is no path. The path is made by walking." There you go.
Cool.
Interesting.
Okay. Do you have some questions for Mylana?
No.
All right. Okay. So, Emily, if someone wanted to find out more about you and go onto this new website of yours, where would they go?
It's emilyrogers.ca, and Rogers is with a D, Rodgers.
All right. Fantastic. And then we'll also have a link to your video on YouTube so that people can check that out as well, because it really is amazing. So, thank you everyone for being here today. This has been such a great conversation. So, Mylana, thank you so much for joining us. And aren't you glad you didn't have to answer the big question today? And thank you, Emily Rodgers, for being our super special guest today. And thank you, Honey Bunch, for co-steering the ship as always. My name is Lasia. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in, who listened, who watched, however it is that you're engaging with us. This has been another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? We look forward to engaging with you again in a couple of weeks with a brand new episode. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lasia Kohut, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping make this podcast a reality. Today's special guest, Emily Rodgers. Music, Vasco Lorenco, copyright 123rf.com. Background illustration, Sakma Staircase, copyright 123rf.com. For more information on this podcast and our Lascia Cahoot Soul Excavator, please visit www.lassiacahoot.com. If you like what you've heard, please like, subscribe, and or let us know by leaving a comment. Thanks for tuning into Who Do You Think You Are?